everyone, welcome to the May 2017 Friday Flashback review from the CC Network. I'm Fred, your reliable host as always, and today is the day that I finally get to do a big show. This one, ladies and gentlemen, is WrestleMania 19 for the Big Four series, and the reason why I'm so excited is simple. I get to finally lay down the law and tell you all whether I think this belongs in the ranks as the greatest WrestleMania of all time. It's often competing with X7 to do it, and today is that day where I get to say it proud, whether that is true or not. Oh, it's going to be so good. Now, we did the Royal Rumble back in March, and since that event, going into this one, not much had really happened. Usually when I say that, though, it means it's quite the opposite, and you would be right for thinking so, as Stone Cold came back and whooped Eric Bischoff's ass, The Rock decimated Hulk Hogan thanks to a crooked referee in Vince McMahon, Triple H defended his world title in a rematch. A rematch against Scott Steiner. Who in the blue hell wanted that a second time? Lord knows. Matt Hardy won the Cruiserweight title, Edge got sidelined with a year-long neck injury, and Jericho and Shawn Michaels decided to trade insults at each other continuously and attempt to kill each other, while Booker T became the #1 contender for the world title. And you think that's all crazy until you remember that Goldberg was announced to be coming to the WWE after this show. It's all pretty crazy. You know, we've got a bumper card in store, there are many matches to talk about, and a lot to do. So, to get out of all this preamble, we need to get on. But, of course, before we do, I have to go with the customary readout. WrestleMania 19, WWE WrestleMania 19, took place on the 30th of March 2003 with 54,097 people piling in to Safeco Field in Seattle, Washington to see it all go down. Now, this was the first WrestleMania to take place on American soil since 9/11, and the now customary tradition of singing America the Beautiful at the start of the show was introduced to interject that patriotic statement back into this worldwide spectacle. Crack Addict by Limp Bizkit was the theme song, and I have to admit it is a very good song despite being bluntly offensive and not on any Limp Bizkit album, not even their greatest hits record. Seriously, Fred Durst, release this thing properly, for the love of God. Also, Limp Bizkit were there on the night to play The Undertaker to the ring with Rollin, despite the fact that he hadn't used the theme in just over a year. Pretty crazy. Nonetheless, ladies and gentlemen, I suspect this is going to be a very long review. We may only have, 9 matches, but there is a lot to tell in backstory and in-depth analysis ahead. So, get some popcorn, sit back, and get comfortable as I take you back through the first WrestleMania that I ever laid my eyes on all those years ago. God damn, it's been so long, but let's get straight into this thing. We kick this supercard into high gear with a Cruiserweight Championship match from SmackDown as the unlikeliest of all incumbent champions, Matt Hardy, took on Rey Mysterio. Now, the reason why I say that is simple. I mentioned in the intro that Matt had won the Cruiserweight title. He earned the shot by forcing himself to lose weight and make the 215-pound weight limit. Now, thanks to a twist of fate off the top rope, Hardy was able to win his first piece of singles gold in just under 2 years by defeating Billy Kidman in Montreal at the pay-per-view. Now, on the March the 6th edition of SmackDown, Rey Mysterio defeated Tajiri and Jamie Noble in a triple threat match to earn the WrestleMania place, while Kidman cashed in his rematch clause, with Shannon Moore's interference helping the Sensei of Mattitude retain his title and setting the bout in stone. The next week, Hardy issued an open challenge, with the Pittsburgh Penguin answering the call, who got unmasked as Brian Kendrick, resulting in an onslaught which made the champion abandoning the match, causing a count-out, and in return, a match between the two of them was made the following week, which Kendrick won thanks to Mysterio's help, earning him a contract on the SmackDown roster in the process. Now, on the final SmackDown before Mania, Hardy and Moore defeated Mysterio and Kendrick in a tag team match, with Mysterio clearing the ring and taking out Moore, but Hardy was the one left standing tall after delivering a twist of fate to his challenger. Would he escape Seattle with the title? And against such supreme opposition, would it indeed be possible? Well, to answer that question, he did. With Shannon Moore's help, Matt held the bottom rope, countering a Hurricane Rana into a pin cover to get the win and retain the title in 5 minutes and 39 seconds. Now, for an exciting and quick and fun match, I'm really saddened that it ended so quickly. Giving these two just under 6 minutes on a card where many long matches existed, it was criminal that it was robbed of more. Although considering what these two managed to get done in that time, I'm very impressed indeed. The psychology revolved around Mysterio's endurance and Moore's ability to interfere, which allowed the proceedings to remain stable as it kept up with the electric pace and frantic momentum shifting. The crowd were into it, but they were disappointed with the champion retaining, souring what was building into a stellar contest between two great workers. Sadly though, rushing most of it meant that it didn't have the impact that it should have, and as a result it only gets what the sum of its parts managed to put to use. While this was an enjoyable match, it only gets 2 stars, and if it had 10 minutes longer, the same amount of time spent on the Miller Lite Catfight Girls segments and its eventual match, which I'm not reviewing on this show, then I'd be more than happy to have given this a higher rating, but sadly, the start of the show is an exciting yet muted one, which is disappointing despite the quality on show. Next up, we have a quite unusual bout indeed, as The Undertaker put his 10-0 winning streak on the line in a handicap match against the Big Show and A-Train. Now, back in October, a returning Big Show chokeslammed a broken down Undertaker post Hell in a Cell with Brock Lesnar off of the stage, resulting in a 2-month layoff for Big Evil, who returned as the number 30 in the Rumble match, if you don't remember, 2 months ago in the last Friday Flashback Big 4 review. While he lost, being eliminated by Brock Lesnar, he firmly set his sights on revenge against the Big Show for what he did to him. Getting his hands on the show, though, proved rather difficult, as he often had to rely on A-Train to do his dirty work with him, and allowing Paul Heyman meddling in proceedings as he kept giving gifts to Taker instead of Big Show. They both faced off at No Way Out, with Taker getting the victory, and on the following SmackDown, Taker was still irritated that A-Train wanted a piece of him, as Heyman said that Show never officially lost due to an illegal choke. Taker was overwhelmed by both men, but was saved by a newcomer called Nathan Jones, of course, who Taker trained before a match against A-Train. However, thanks to Jones and Big Show's interference, the match was thrown out, with the faces clearing the Giants out of the ring. The tag team match between the pairs, though, was announced for Mania, as Show and A-Train prepared by mowing through Tajiri and Funaki in a tag match. Taker responded by defeating Bill DeMott the next week. Thrilling stuff, really, isn't it? Nathan Jones hyped up himself by kicking through the locker room door, knocking Chuck Palumbo out in the process. He then attacked Big Show and A-Train in a tag match, which backfired to enable Taker to make the save, just as Nathan Jones had done before, as Mania approached. Sadly though, Nathan Jones would not make it to this pay-per-view, as he was assaulted backstage by the fully blooded Italians as revenge for Chuck Palumbo's attack 3 nights prior, making Taker have to go it alone and take these two big men on by himself. But in all fairness, he didn't need the help anyway. Even though Nathan Jones did manage to come back in and somehow not get DQ'd, all it took was a big boot in that match from here that allowed Taker to handle it well, hit A-Train with a tombstone, and end this match to extend his streak after 9 minutes and 45 seconds of action. Now, I'll give Taker some major credit here for at least getting something out of this bout, as his agility ensured the match had some vibrance to it, as he did all he could to put the big man down. However, whatever the Big Show and A-Train did, it neutered the hard work that the American Badass had done and made the crowd apathetic in many places, making this flat match pull in very similar support to the build that it's got. Seriously, horrible build up to a match that no one cared about. While the crowd did enjoy Taker's offense immensely and booed the heels accordingly, it didn't ever get out of first gear, even with both men wearing Taker down and him selling effectively. The match just had nothing to it, and even with Nathan Jones' belated run-in befuddling me, as a guy I've already highlighted, Taker wasn't DQ'd when he should have been, it showed how much of a loosely defined mess this feud's end and match was. While some will appreciate the simplicity of its storytelling and the quality Taker tried to insist, sadly, it didn't work for me, despite his attempts, and he tried his hardest to insert something here, but you can't, well, to take the political analogy, you can't put lipstick on a pig and call it anything else but a pig, can you? Good God. Anyway, this was a boring and stale match that hit its peak back at No Way Out, when Big Show and Taker actually faced off in a one-on-one contest. And all in all, this was just overly unnecessary and another major blot on Taker's streak resume. It's half a star worthy. And thankfully, it's the lowest rated match of the night if you do not count the Miller Lite Catgirl fight. Which I'm not. I have to keep repeating it because you guys might be expecting me to rip it a new one. It ain't happening. And I'm happy to get the lowest rated bout of the evening out of the way this early, because it's only going to get better from here. Let's move on to the next one. Let's completely forget about the Miller Lite Catfight girls, because we have something even better to look forward to. A Women's Championship triple threat match where Victoria put the title on the line against Trish Stratus and Jazz. Now, the rivalry between Trish Stratus and Victoria had lasted since the summer, and it finally hit its hottest moment on the January 27th edition of Raw with the Chicago Street Fight for the Women's Championship, which the champion retained. But after the match, Jazz returned and beat Trish down for injuring her back in June. Lovely continuity, can't go wrong with that. She then violently beats down any and every woman she comes across in the hopes of leaving Victoria and her title to be all that's left for her to storm through, a point which Jazz affirms after Victoria tries to convince themselves to be tag team partners. They don't get on well, but they still won a tag match and decided to, well, there isn't much more I can say. Smile strangely at each other and then slap each other across the face lots. They both agreed that they're bitches and Victoria's the psycho one, despite the fact we already knew that. It felt weird and strange, and yeah, I don't even need to explain how crazy it is, but there we go. Jazz's victory tour, though, came to a halt as Trish Stratus made her return on the 24th of February Raw, attacking her before Victoria's botched attempt at saving her new friend. Trish teamed up with Jacqueline against Jazz and Victoria in a tag match, pinning the champion to win the bout. The following week, Trish and Jazz had a number one contendership match to settle their beef and send one of them to WrestleMania. Unfortunately, Victoria came in and interrupted after 20 seconds, laying both of them out and proclaiming her dominance, making the match official. Now, Victoria and Steven Richards defeated Trish in a mixed tag team handicap style match, only for Jeff Hardy to make the save, resulting in another mixed tag match before Mania, with Trish pinning Victoria, only for Jazz to blindside the Canadian before she can get a kiss on Jeff, making her look the strongest going into this pay-per-view. Now, despite that... Despite Victoria looking strong, it was Trish who came out on top, pinning Victoria off a chick kick that was more a counter off the Widow's Peak to secure her fourth title reign in 7 minutes and 17 seconds. Considering the match on the card that came before it went 2 minutes and 28 seconds longer than this one, I've rarely seen a match that seemed to be so directionless and unaware of what it was trying to achieve before. I could see that it wanted to keep all the women strong, but at the same time it looked as unpredictable and as frantic as possible. It felt so sloppy and loose as a visual experience and lacked major crowd noise, which meant it was impacted quite badly, but thankfully, the seemingly throwaway women's match did have some high points by keeping its fast momentum shifts and pace frequent to make you retain interest, while Jazz pulled some amazing hard-hitting moves out of her arsenal. She's definitely been a favourite of mine for years, and this was a good showcasing as to why. However, there was a lot of botches to inevitably allow that sloppy tag to validate itself. There was a lot of psychology from Trish's interactions with both opponents. Considering her history with them, it made valid sense, and her durability and resolve came through well, as all three women reversed moves like it was no one's business. It was a nice athletic display, but it lacked major finesse and crowd interest to move above poor territory as far as I'm concerned. But Jazz, Trish and Victoria surprised with one of the better women's matches at Mania, which, considering the meagre history of female performers on this stage, it's easy to see how this could be bettered in subsequent years and the modern day. It's a 1.5 star match. I will praise it for trying to make these women's look good in the ring. Women's? But I stress that the pace doesn't equal fluid, crisp and clean wrestling. If they slowed down a tad and gave this match some more time, we would have had a much better match than what we actually got. Seeing as Raw had put a multi-person match on the card, SmackDown thought that they could do better and put their tag team cards out on the table. Raw, though, they stuck their tag team title match on the pre-show on Sunday Night Heat. So SmackDown wins the moral battle in this one with their multi-man bout for the WWE Tag Team Championships, as Team Angle defended their belts against Los Guerreros and the team of Chris Benoit and Rhino in a triple threat tag team match. Now, following the Rumble, Haas and Benjamin continued to do their rounds in the name of the WWE Champion, who of course the team bears the namesake. However, despite losing his trust due to some underwhelming performances against Edge and Chris Benoit respectively, they were not viewed in the highest of wills. As a result, Angle banned them from ringside for a match against Rey Mysterio, which led to the champion getting his ass kicked by Benoit and Edge as a result. However, the young men rebounded by defeating Edge and Benoit in a tag match on the January 30th edition of SmackDown to win themselves a number one contendership title match against Los Guerreros, thanks to Angle's help, and then subsequently won the titles, getting a roll-up on Eddie Guerrero. Now, Team Angle continued to fight against Edge and Benoit alongside Brock Lesnar feuding against Angle, resulting in a six-man tag match at No Way Out, with Team Angle taking Edge out of the equation, giving a kayfabe reason for his neck surgery. But that still didn't stop Lesnar and Benoit winning, because they are beasts, as you would expect. Now, with Edge out of action, Benoit sought a new partner, who happened to be Rhino. They subsequently faced Team Angle in a non-title match a few weeks later, with Benoit making Haas tap to the crossface, to which the champions rebounded by defeating Mysterio and Kidman the following week. The same night as that match, Los Guerreros and Benoit and Rhino duelled to a double DQ in their number one contendership match, resulting in a triple threat tag match being announced for WrestleMania. Much like the women's match, but with actual action involved, with Haas exacting some revenge by hitting Rhino with the title and subsequently beating him up, only for Benoit to make the save, with Benoit himself beating Benjamin as Rhino prevented Haas from interfering, while Los Guerreros individually got wins as both of the champions on the final SmackDown before the pay-per-view. Now, with all odds stacked against them, could Angle's two prodigies retain their titles? And with a lot of luck, they managed to, as thanks to Benjamin tagging himself in and covering a gored Chavo Guerrero, they did it, stealing the match and retaining the titles after 8 minutes and 46 seconds. Now, with the tag team division on SmackDown in late 2002, WWE had lightning in a bottle, with supreme in-ring talent making compelling television week after week after week. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is the SmackDown 6 for you. It will do good stuff. However, once Survivor Series had died down following the triple threat tag match they had there, this emphasis on high-impact tag team wrestling, while still entertaining, did not have the quality that its prior contests did, and this was a defining statement of it. This was a match that, while having its chances to liven up the crowd, did little to ensure that it could be done. They loved the aggression, but solely focused on the great, albeit short, Eddie versus Benoit segments, while leaving the champions alongside Rhino and Chavo out to stud in silence. Its finish was entirely predictable, given that Team Angle had just won the damn belts a few weeks prior, making this fast yet disinteresting match not have the fire that it needed to succeed. The intensity of the bout all round and the desire that showed how important these titles were, alongside its electric pace, the selling and working of many body parts alongside many great near falls, ensured that it wasn't a boring match by any means. But when I look at it should have been a lot more. It was a nice feather in SmackDown's cap to once again show its ability to make compelling wrestling out of little, but it was a passover knowing more insane stuff was coming in the night. It was a 1.5-star bout. Nothing special, although within the right hands, it had every ability to be. Another reminder of just how painfully mismanaged this undercard was on the show. But the good thing is, from here on, we're in to the main event scene, with 5 matches that would have been worthy of main eventing any show around this time, and they were all on a WrestleMania. Whew, this should be some good stuff. Let's move right on in to probably the match you all want to hear about. And it is a bit of a doozy, as Shawn Michaels took on Chris Jericho in a one-on-one contest. Now, as I've already made aware in the Royal Rumble 2003 review video back in March, Jericho and Michaels have been in each other's throats since Survivor Series, and in the Rumble, Jericho cost Michaels the match and vice versa, furthering more antagonism between the two. Now, Jericho continued to be an evil bastard by whacking Stacy Keibler in the face with a steel chair accidentally during a match of Test, and thanks to Christian's interference and insistence, he didn't apologise for his actions, which forces Michaels to give him a beating for not being a real man. Jericho subsequently lost the number one contendership match for the world title, and followed up by a loss to Hardy and Michaels in a no DQ match on the February 17th edition of Raw, despite handcuffing HBK to the ring post, and of course that Hardy is Jeff, if you hadn't guessed, which led to a match at No Way Out between Hardy and Jericho, which Y2J won. Test and Stacey hadn't finished with their Jericho business just yet, as they were put into a mixed tag team match as punishment for laughing at Eric Bischoff's beating on pay-per-view by Stone Cold Steve Austin, resulting in Jericho locking Stacey in the walls, with Michaels making the save, much to the crowd's delight. But this night wasn't over, as Test eliminated from the No One Contendership Battle Royal that Booker T eventually won. Now, once again, being bastards, Jericho and Christian give Test a concerto over next week and line one up for Stacey, but once again Michaels, being the hero he is, saved her, but he ate a chair to the head in the process, with Jericho admonishing the bloodied Heartbreak Kid for being too much of a hero when it wasn't warranted, leading to a challenge for WrestleMania. Jericho wanted to end his career, something that HBK didn't take too lightly, as he super kicked Y2J on the top of the ramp the following week. Michaels, though, inspired Jericho to become who he is, and now Jericho had stated that he wanted to end his legacy and forge his own. And on the final Raw before the pay-per-view, both men went to the ring to clear the air, with Jericho reaffirming his new goal to become the first Chris Jericho, and not the next Shawn Michaels, as he slapped Shawn across the face, resulting in one for Jericho as well. They were in each other's heads and prepared for what would be an almighty clash in Seattle. Now, I mentioned this was a doozy. There is no doubt this match would be good, so here is what you would expect. It got over 3 stars, and you know what that means in the Friday Flashback series. Oh, we have to give the best Raw match on this event what it deserves: in-depth play-by-play analysis. Jericho got a normal pedestrian entrance, while Michaels got an ego-filling pyrotechnic fest, befitting of the Heartbreak Kid. As the bell rings and the crowd realise, oh dear God, this is actually happening, they start to go a little bit nuts. Both men tie up and go to the ground, but prove their ability and agility to put themselves on even keel, while Michaels taunts his opponent by relaxing on the top turnbuckle. They both continue to execute standard wrestling holds as they shift momentum with such smoothness the crowd roars in appreciation. Michaels grounds Jericho from a headlock takedown, covering for 2, while Jericho rolls up for 2 as he fights out and takes HBK down, but Michaels quickly rebounds and leapfrogs over the running Jericho, only to eat a slap in the face when all is said and done, a gesture that Michaels returns with a major amount of force before throwing the King of the World out of the ring. Jericho dodges a plancher and points to his head, thinking that he's outsmarted the Icon, and he ends up eating a baseball slide and a crossbody to the outside for his troubles, but the wily Canadian rolls Michaels up for 2. Momentum is shifting so fast here, it's difficult to keep up as Jericho nails a nice spinning heel kick to keep HBK down before throwing him head first into a turnbuckle and following up with chops and chokes, telling the ref to shut the hell up. Jericho goes for one-handed bulldog, but he's then thrown nuts first into the opposing turnbuckle in a lovely spot, as HBK locks in the figure 4 in an attempt to weaken Jericho's pace, but Y2J uses his strength to overturn the move. Michaels gets out and attacks the leg with an atomic drop, but is pushed into the post shoulder first by Jericho as Michaels gets out, countering very quickly. Another whip proceeds. Jericho thinks he's put Michaels out, but he skins the cat and Hurricane Rana's his opponent out and then hits a diving crossbody. It's brilliant. Michaels then lays in some punches but misses a dropkick, allowing for Jericho to lock in the walls on the outside, weakening HBK as he can barely run in to break the 10 count. He then rams the surgically repaired back into the post and eats a showering of boos for his troubles, because why the hell not? Michaels attempts to get back in, but eats a springboard dropkick, keeping the showstopper at bay, as momentum is for the first time stable in one corner, as Jericho wears the back with a backdrop and a suplex while shouting that he's better than Michaels, covering for 2, and it's just so good. Jericho uses the hair to wrench a chin lock and a backbreaker again to weaken the back. Obviously, why would it be called a backbreaker if he didn't? Keeping Shawn down. He goes for a cocky pin, standing on the chest for 2 as the crowd give him a piece of his mind for it as he goes back to the chin lock. The Seattle crowd are rallying behind Michaels, getting louder and louder and louder as he fights out, but Jericho rakes the eyes. However, counters an attempted slam to a DDT, putting both men down onto the canvas. Robinson makes the count as Jericho gets to his feet. Michaels then whacks him in the face, whips him, but eats a flying forearm as Y2J kips up and hits Michaels' muscle taunt, and the crowd are just booing the crap out of him. And Shawn decides, oh hell no, you don't rip off my move, and kips up himself, delivering a flying forearm, atomic drop, and back body drop. Michaels is on an adrenaline rush as he goes for the kill, nailing a lovely moonsault for 2. Momentum has well and truly shifted as both men exchange multiple near falls, but the younger Jericho gets him lined up for the walls, with Michaels, however, using his leg strength to counter. Both men switch to a Northern Knights suplex, which puts Michaels down for 2, but he somehow uses his back strength because he's on adrenaline or something to get back up, but he eats a forearm to the face. The crowd are loving this, chanting for HBK as he eats a one-handed bulldog and a lion salt. Covers, but again the Heartbreak Kid kicks out. Jericho covers again, but Shawn will not die as the frustration is starting to build. The momentum shifts again off a boot to the face by Shawn. He goes for the Hurricane Rana, but Jericho counters it so beautifully into the walls. Michaels is writhing in pain as the crowd go into overdrive. He makes it to the ropes with all his might. Jericho releases to lock it in again, but then HBK rolls him up for 2. Jericho then targets the back with a lovely double underhook backbreaker. He then goes for the top for what, a spinning elbow to the face, of course. He followed it up by tuning up the band. Imitation is the sincerest form of flattery as he hits the sweet chin music with all the vigor and humanity. 1, 2, and Shawn Michaels somehow kicks out. The crowd are going ballistic. And as I am as well, because I could not believe that just happened. He goes for Michaels, who rebounds with a springboard crossbody and punches. Jericho is put down. Looks to lock in the walls of his own, because it makes sense for him to do that, because these two love copying each other, but sends Jericho into the post head first. Lovely. Shawn covers, but Y2J this time shows resilience and comes out fighting off a kick out with a stiff shot to the back. He lifts Michaels up top, goes for a sky-high backdrop, which is, oh, this is so beautiful. Michaels counters it into a crossbody in mid-air. It's awesome. God damn. God, Michaels covers, but Jericho still won't give in, kicking out once more. Michaels returns up top for his own volition this time, looking for the elbow, but Jericho pushes Robinson into the ropes, bringing the showstopper down right onto his grapefruits. God, it still hurts looking back at those things. Jericho goes up for a superplex, he's pushed down, and the elbow drop connects. The crowds are losing it again as Michaels kips up and tunes the band up. Jericho counters, locks in the walls. The crowd are blowing the roof off this place as Michaels struggles to the ropes. Being dragged back, but he fights on and gets to the ropes again, against all the odds. Jericho is in shock. He's crying as he just can't seem to put him away, pleading with Robinson to tell him that he tapped. It's just so beautiful. He goes for one last run and eats a sweet chin music. Both men are down. Shawn covers. He goes 1, 2, but for God's sake, Jericho kicked out. Who the hell is going to win this thing? It's insane. Oh, God damn. Jericho crawls up the turnbuckle. Michaels crawls up Jericho as the exhaustion and fatigue is palpable as Y2J whips HBK into the turnbuckle, backflipping over, and a shot to the back follows, with one more backdrop looking inevitable. Michaels flips through, rolls him up into a jackknife, 1, 2, 3, to claim the victory after 22 minutes and 23 seconds of insanity. Both men then embrace, only for Jericho to be the one who leaves the ring standing following a low blow afterwards, because he's a heel and you wouldn't expect anything less. Wow, ladies and gentlemen. Now this was a sublime contest. If you look up for the definition of a show stealer in the dictionary, you'll see a picture of the iconic elbow drop that you can see on screen right now next to it. This was a masterpiece of countering, resilience, and athleticism as both men gave it their all to come out on top. Momentum shifted so much in this, they looked like complete equals as pace remained so intense and driven throughout. The crowd, while quiet early on, soaked the match in as it got hotter and hotter the longer it went on, as both of these two men tried to out-wrestle, outmaneuver, and outsmart each other from bell to bell. It was exhilarating, with no botches in sight, so crisply wrestled and just so entertaining. You'll be surprised that it even lost marks anywhere. All in all, Michaels could have sold the back a little more, the crowd could have been a little louder earlier on, and the match should have ended with Michaels tapping out to the second application of the walls, meaning the match went on longer than intended. Alongside not having much move-wise, this match did lose points, and it did weigh it down a little, stopping this great match from reaching 5-star territory. But damn, this was still an amazing match. A superb display by two of the best ever, and it is most certainly worth your time. My description of play-by-play action do not do this match any justice at all. Go and check this 4.5-star contest out now. It gets better every time I see it, and it is just stunning. I could have and should have rated this match higher, but unfortunately, they are the rules, I'm afraid, and I have to stick with them. And I feel it's quite fitting that both of these guys created this amazing, awesome match on a night where many assumed other matches would overshadow them, which is incredible. I often feel this is one of the big, massive show-stealer classics on a WrestleMania card, much like Bret and Owen had at Mania X 9 years earlier. It's not as good as that match, obviously. That's half a star better. That's a 5-star classic right there. This wasn't to the same level, but in its impact as a show stealer, it is on almost even keel. And as a result, we have to just leave this match behind and just marvel in it as we go on to the next match. And it is, a bit grittier and a bit more unsavory in comparison, as the World Heavyweight Championship match saw Triple H defend against Booker T. To say that Triple H had a rough start to 2003 would be the understatement of the decade, as he had to carry Scott Steiner through two terrible, horrible, awful matches that are a disrespect to the term pay-per-view main event. Good God almighty. And seriously, you could think it wouldn't have been his fault if he had to wrestle with that lumbering piece of wood. However, Booker T, though, was starting to make waves as his popularity on Raw grew, despite failing to recapture the World Tag Team titles with Goldust following the Royal Rumble. Now, through his attempt to save Tommy Dreamer, he inadvertently ran into an embryonic evolution on the February 10th edition of Raw, who promptly destroyed him. But this did place Booker T in a higher place on the card as he fought alone following a Goldust injury. It was an opportunity he took by the horns, as he not only pinned Triple H in a tag team match with Scott Steiner before No Way Out, as we alluded to earlier, he also eliminated The Rock last to become the #1 contender for the game's World Championship at WrestleMania. However, this is where the feud starts to become, unwatchable viewing. Because this, of course, the following week later, Triple H dropped that now infamous line of "people like you don't become world champion." It's hard for me to say, let alone know it happened. And he compared Booker's previous title successes to be on par with Russo and Arquette's in that they meant nothing, despite the fact he won the title 5 frickin' times. And even though he would enjoy it and try his best at Mania, he would ultimately lose. And Booker then won a match with Scott Steiner later on in the evening, but got beaten up by Triple H and Flair to ensure that he got that message. Now, you thought that line was going to be the end of it, really, but no. This feud somehow got worse. I don't know how, but it did, as Ric Flair interrupted Booker, telling the crowd that the game knew nothing about him, and saying that his life and story of redemption led to him to this moment. Flair, yeah, I already said it, he interrupted it, not only telling Booker that he didn't deserve to be champion, or that because he spent time in prison that he was a bad man, but also that Triple H had offered him to become his personal chauffeur. It gets worse, if it can even do so, as Flair got laid out by an obviously incensed Booker T, because why wouldn't you be? He was given $1 and told by Triple H to get him a towel, with that demeaning display resulting in Triple H being assaulted. How racist is this? Oh my god. This entire angle makes you want to punch the writers. You thought it couldn't get any more cringy than Katie Vick? We found a near close replica. Oh my days. God, it's just horrible. Triple H rebounded by bullying Maven and destroying Al Snow not long after in a very one-sided contest, which made me realise that, yeah, every time Triple H goes down, he gets back up just as quickly. The insulting verbiage continued from the world champion, though, as he called Booker a common street thug, which meant Goldust decided to say enough's enough and surprisingly answer the insult, telling the game that he is actually worried deep down, and he shouldn't judge a book by his cover, leading to a beatdown and Booker making the save, with the challenger beating the champion to a pulp. Triple H then faced Goldust and, to no one's surprise, won again, proving the point that every time he goes down he gets back up again, not seemingly losing any momentum at all. And on the final Raw, Goldust and Booker T faced Triple H and Flair in a tag match, with Booker scoring the pin over the champion for the second time. And Triple H looked despondent as Flair consoled him, trying to convince the cerebral assassin that he could get the job done and that he would win and retain the championship. And you know what? Flair's pep talk may have actually done something, as he got the job done to the letter, pinning Booker T off a pedigree some 18 seconds after he hit it, mind you, to retain the title after 18 minutes and 43 seconds of action. Now, the storyline was offensive on many levels. It was horrible. And it wasn't just the fact that it was just morally unpleasant to watch, but it was also the fact that it made Booker out to be the smallest of underdogs. The crowd were willing him to win, and that's perfectly fine in that. They wanted to see Triple H being beaten. However, because of the way that Booker was booked in this entire feud, the idea of him winning while in hindsight being needed and necessary was never going to happen. And for every major move that Booker tried to do to seem like he could actually do something, Triple H seemed impervious to punishment. And that wasn't just in the build-up, it was the match as well. And honestly, it neutered everything this match tried to do in making Booker seem credible because the feud had put him into the mud. Considering all the verbal maulings he got week after week after week, it's no surprise this match was unbalanced at times. However, I am very thankful that Booker did dominate for large periods with a fast and effective offense to showcase his anger and skill effectively, whilst Flair's interferences bulked things out while Triple H had worked Booker T's leg for most of the contest, which was lovely. The psychology saved this match that went the right amount of time, yet had issues balancing its pace and retaining its crowd interest, therefore making it a very challenging contest to watch overall. I enjoyed what it was bringing to the table, but it was done without much vigour, and I can blame the crowd for that, as their disinterest in this feud meant that the match fell on deaf ears, much like the main event in the year prior at Mania 18. Even though, just like last year, it had to follow a classic. Although, in my opinion, this pay-per-view's claim to that statement is more valid. The match was passable. It was an average match whose outcome was bewildering. Why it would take so long for Triple H to cover Booker after a pedigree and he still couldn't kick out makes no sense. All in all, ladies and gentlemen, this was a 2.5-star match. It's one that was fun, but disinteresting at the same time. It's a peculiar beast. It really is. It's a good athletic contest, let down in so many areas. Then again, we got Booker T executing a flawless Houston hangover, which alongside his jumping super kick in my eyes, made him look like a machine. Too bad the Machine had to topple him. It would have made for a perfect ending if Booker had got his due, but sadly it just wasn't to be. So what do we have up next? Well, it's a street fight that's 20 years in the making as Hulk Hogan took on Vince McMahon, and this match was a long time coming. McMahon had stated to Hogan that Hulkamania was diseased and needed to be put out of its misery, and of course resulted in McMahon assisting in Undertaker's victory against Hogan for the Undisputed title at Judgment Day, some 10 months prior to this match. 10 months of build. Jesus. Hogan tried to retire on the following SmackDown, resulting in Vince threatening to sue him for breach of contract, in revenge for what happened in 1993 as a reminder of who made Hulkamania, and that the WWE will milk Hulkamania dry until the day Hogan himself dies, with Hogan stating himself that only he would be able to retire fully after whooping Vince's ass, which he subsequently did with his weight belt. Vince, though, was confident, yelling that Hulkamania would die on his terms. The next week, Hogan stated his desire to face McMahon one-on-one, with Vince seemingly in agreement. However, thanks to Kurt Angle and Edge's rivalry intertwining, the SmackDown owner is forced to keep his distance for now, as of course he won back control of the company from Ric Flair not long after. However, they crossed paths after June's King of the Ring pay-per-view, with McMahon feigning sadness over Hogan being made to tap out on WWE television for what was believed to be the first time, with Hogan poking Vince's shoulder, reminding him that one day he would get his, for sure. Now, Hogan won the titles, the tag team titles I should say, with Edge, but the success and the good times were not to last. And you can tell why, because they lost the tag team titles at Vengeance, and then subsequently Hogan got brutalized and destroyed by Brock Lesnar, resulting in a blood-splurting bear hug and a violent chair shot, putting Mr. WWE and the Lord of Hulkamania out of action indefinitely. He arrived back 5 months later on the post-Rumble SmackDown, with Stephanie McMahon announcing his return to a 12-minute standing ovation. It was crazy, and the announcement that he'd signed a new contract, with his full intention to now, after that's resolved, go after Vince and get his hands on him, with McMahon seemingly being reluctant to fight. Hogan made the decision for him by taking him down with one punch. The following week, an incensed Vince berated his daughter for bringing him back, claiming that Hulkamania was on life support and that fans should own up to the fact that he will kill it once and for all, announcing Rock vs. Hogan to prove his statement correct. And of course, Rock won the return bout thanks to a crooked referee called Sylvain Grenier and an electricity fault in another Montreal screw job, of course. Vince responded gleefully that the lights had turned out finally on Hulkamania, and the McMahon-omania will be running wild from now on. Hogan obviously took offense to this and wanted to settle their feud like men as they berated each other for all the bad things that they had done over the last 20 years, from the steroid trial to the Monday Night War, and importantly over who truly created Hulkamania, with McMahon reaffirming that he doesn't hate the fans or Hulkamania itself, but Hogan as a man for all he'd done, especially turning on him after he plucked him from the AWA and made him into the icon that he is. Vince stated that he will fight Hogan at Mania and that he would kill Hulkamania once and for all, with the stipulation that if Hogan were to lose, he would retire. Now, Hogan retorted that he's wanted this all his life, that Vince would have to train his ass off if he had any chance of beating him. Vince, though, the following week felt hurt inside at the knowledge he'd have to kill one of his creations, at the biggest creation he ever made, as both men get ready to sign this contract for the street fight. Vince signed it, but then whacked Hogan over the head with a steel chair, following the claim that Hogan had made McMahon, not the other way around, forcing the Icon to sign the contract in his own blood after he stabbed him repeatedly in the open wound made by the chair. On the final SmackDown before Mania, Hogan unleashed one last rallying cry, telling the Hulkamaniacs this wouldn't be his last WrestleMania, then that you'd see him like you'd never seen him before, and that Vince would be left in a pool of his own blood, live on pay-per-view. And after all that, after that insane 10-month build, we get to what was honestly an insane contest that featured interference from Rowdy Roddy Piper and Sylvain Grenier, a ridiculous leg drop off a ladder through a table, and copious amount of blood being spilt. It took Hogan 20 minutes and 43 seconds to put McMahon down after hitting him with 3 leg drops to ensure Hulkamania would live on. And that wasn't the end of it, if you think it would be, as Shane McMahon, who helped train his dad for the match, came out to help his beaten father up as Voodoo Child blared out. Of course, it's the stupid dubbed version in the network and DVD version, but still, who cares? I love the original, with Hogan offering McMahon's son the chance, only for the defiant chairman to stick his middle finger up at his rival, with things on his mind that, yeah, this wasn't over. Sadly, it wasn't. And the thing is, ladies and gentlemen, when you look at this card on paper, many wouldn't have expected 2 men in their 50s at the time to put on such an insane and rewarding contest. Then again, when you realise that it's 2 of wrestling's biggest egos settling a rivalry that has been built on television for over a year and continued on afterwards, it really shouldn't be that surprising at all. Hogan, though, he knew how to make a match special with the right partner, and with a foolhardy Vince McMahon who always knew how to look good taking a beating by his side, this ridiculous match became what it was, an utterly pleasing contest that surprised in quality with every turn. While it was a slow-paced match, one that was very slow, it added a lot of tension, ramping it up as it went along because many were unsure what would happen as these 2 went ballistic for most of the contest. It was bloody, it was barbaric, and we saw McMahon do a ladder spot through a table. When the hell do we see that? That's amazing. And it gets even more crazy because Hugo Savinovich, the Spanish commentator, got busted open. A commentator bled on pay-per-view to really define what no holds barred meant, in a mentality anyway. You also had Roddy Piper's return, Sylvain Grenier's run-in, adding even more smoke to the fire. Now this may have been overly long, quite slow, and lacked in major move variety outside of obviously that ladder spot because damn, that's awesome. But when you look at this contest, it's the most shocking on the card because no one expected it to be this good. No one expected it to have easily retained interest and take you on such a storied ride to show how deep and meaningful this match was. It felt like this was a match made to be the ultimate blow-off to these 2's kayfabe and real-life beef. And while I am sad that it stretched out to include the Mr. America crap later on, I am very happy that it took place. I'm going to give it 3.5 stars, which is slightly under the rating I gave Shane and Vince's match 2 years prior. But it does show me that if Vince McMahon is involved, the match is must-see and has the quality to go along with it. And once I get to reviewing WrestleMania 22 again in the future in this Big 4 series, we'll be able to see whether that streak of good quality Vince McMahon matches can continue onwards. We've reached the semi-main event now, and while most modern cards would stick a filler match in before the final bout, this one thought, instead of giving you 2 jobbers fighting for nothing to calm you down after 3 great matches, why not give you Rock vs. Austin 3 to really up the ante? Seriously, this pay-per-view is firing on all cylinders, and we aren't even at the main event match yet. I hope you still have your seatbelts buckled because it's only going to get better from here as Rock vs. Austin happened for the third and final time. Now, 2002 had proven to be a tumultuous year for both of WWE's biggest stars. Austin had taken his ball and gone home, while The Rock, fresh off a then record-breaking 7th WWE Championship reign, had it quickly extinguished by Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam, forcing him into a sabbatical to film more movies. Now, both men subsequently returned at No Way Out, with Rock winning against Hulk Hogan in already noted acrimonious circumstances, while Austin himself destroyed Eric Bischoff, who, thanks to that match, had saved his job as Raw GM, but that didn't obviously stop the ass-whooping that he received on the night. The following night on Raw, Rock unleashed his now legendary tirade against the Toronto crowd, and he also stated that he wanted to go for Triple H's WrestleMania match and become world champion, starting out by winning the number contendership battle royal later in the evening. But of course, we all know he got eliminated by Booker T, but it led him, afterwards, on that same show, getting into some hilarious altercations with the Hurricane, dropping a truth bomb, well, that he's afraid of Austin, but Austin himself was being arranged a welcome party by Bischoff to protect him from receiving another beating as he returned to Raw for the first time in a while. Austin, well, he arrived nearly mowing down the entire party, claiming in the ring with a tire iron that he'd been sitting at home on his ass for too long, and he has a massive can of whoop-ass ready for any and everyone who wants to come through against him, which is all good. However, The Rock came out. And yeah, he laid down some interesting words, telling the Rattlesnake that it's a bad idea to thank the fans, as just like him, they could turn on you like that. Noting that the only thing that he hadn't done in his in-ring career, outside of the King of the Ring obviously, which he obviously had forgotten about because it had been discontinued by this point, was to beat that bald-headed candy ass at WrestleMania. This led to Bischoff coming out and allowing Rock free reign of choice for his WrestleMania opponent, to be either Triple H or Austin if he beats Booker T the following week. But before the match could take place, Rock declined it, saying that facing Austin is all that he's been thinking about and he will beat the Rattlesnake at Mania. Bischoff, though, still wants to bury the hatchet with Austin, but bigs himself up in the process for Austin's success following his exit from WCW. With Austin obviously taking offense to that just before he could put his foot, though, in Bischoff's ass. Rock came out making Austin issue the challenge to take him on in the ring, which Rock declines as Austin says he's scared of what he can't beat, before finally stomping a mod hole through Bischoff. Well, he might as well have done. He basically turned into a pulp after that. Later that evening, The Rock faced the Hurricane and lost thanks to Austin's interference in a really awesome moment. Austin then got a match with Bischoff the following week, which Rock interfered with and gave the Rattlesnake a stunner. Austin, though, wasn't done as he fought back, pinning Bischoff off a stunner before running into a rock bottom as Rock left the ring, holding a can of Steve Weiser, flipping him off all at the same time. Finally, though, The Rock had his concert for Sacramento on the final Raw, which goes swimmingly as Bischoff had filed a restraining order to stop Austin interrupting proceedings. The song finished, and Austin made his way to the ring, stomping a mud hole in The Rock and destroying his guitar, as this feud reached boiling point. However, despite his best efforts though, Austin could not get the job done a third time, as Rock defeated the toughest SOB after hitting him with 3 rock bottoms, signaling the end of their storied history and, unbeknownst to many, Austin's career after 17 minutes and 53 seconds. These two, they've never had a bad match at WrestleMania. Their Mania X7 bout was a 5-star classic of storytelling, intensity, and sheer violence. Their Mania 15 bout was a fun 3.25-star overbooked brawl with a hot crowd helping it paper over some glaring cracks. The final bout in their trilogy has more emotion than the first counter, with a slower pace and a softer, more appreciative crowd, didn't hit the highs of the second. It sits nicely in the middle as both men played off their history and the sublime endurance that they have to create something intense and dramatic of all of its own accord. It was slower, making the moves hit harder. And especially knowing that this was Austin's last match, you could tell the care that both men took to ensure they both looked good, albeit with Rock looking, of course, like the younger, more athletic stud that he was in comparison to the surly and defiant yet crippled Rattlesnake. The match doesn't seem like much on paper. When you piece it all together, though, it's quite a spectacle, much like their prior bouts were. This was a perfect cool down after the insane street fight that the fans had just witnessed, and while I feel it went slightly too long, it did all it had to do, and I can't be more than happy than that. It had its faults, yes, but in the bigger picture, for these two to get 3.5 stars out of me for something that looked so simple proves how good the chemistry between them was. They could take something that looked so asinine and plain and just make it shine. That, ladies and gentlemen, is star power and chemistry for you, and it's a worthy closer to Austin's wrestling career. And with that, we have finally reached the main event from SmackDown, marking the first of 2 times the brand capped off the biggest show of them all, doing so deservedly with the WWE Championship match, as we saw 1996 Freestyle Olympic gold medalist and WWE Champion Kurt Angle defend the title against 2000 NCAA Heavyweight Champion Brock Lesnar, who was not only the Rumble winner, but also the youngest world champion in WWE history in arguably the most legitimate contest in the history of the company. And I am not saying that statement lightly, because when you look at these two's accomplishments, it makes valid sense to say so. Now, following his Rumble win, Lesnar set his goals for the next few months into stone, to F5 Paul Heyman for his betrayal and to take the title from Angle for all he'd done to him. He, though, had to wait for both, as Team Angle and WWE Champion Kurt Angle got into scuffles with Benoit and Edge, as we've mentioned, allowing the lean, mean fighting machine to prepare himself for his future WrestleMania shot, and conversely give Heyman's trio a loss at No Way Out, as I'd alluded to earlier. Now, following the pay-per-view, Team Angle attempted to amp the pressure up on Lesnar by facing him in a gauntlet match, only for Lesnar to annihilate them, getting his hands on Angle before Heyman made the save, with Lesnar winning the right to face any member of Team Angle that he wants to in a cage match the next week, with Paul Heyman being his preferred target as he's already faced the other two and Angle is penciled in for a later date. To add even more spice to those proceedings, Lesnar would get a title match against Angle the following week if he won, so that regardless of the implications for Mania, it would be pretty awesome. Lesnar F5'd Heyman to cross a goal off his list and win a shot against Angle. However, it wouldn't be as simple as you'd think, as Kurt swapped out with his brother Eric, causing Lesnar to lose acrimoniously and resulting in Eric getting violently assaulted afterwards. Angle revelled in his intelligence, proclaiming that he is the best, and that Brock is not only a disgrace to both amateur and professional wrestling, but he'll also be known as the next big loser when he taps in Seattle. Now, Stephanie, however, the SmackDown GM, had other ideas. She came out and decreed that if Angle were to be DQ'd or counted out, as well as someone interfering on his behalf at WrestleMania, he would lose the title on the spot, all to ensure that Stephanie gets what she wants for the brand, a clean and extremely well-wrestled bout by two of the greatest athletes that WWE has ever seen. Lesnar subsequently takes out Eric before Angle smashes a crotch over Lesnar's head and Angle slams him through a chair ribs first. And finally, a camel clutch focusing on those ribs. Lovely. Now, on the final SmackDown, both men reiterated that this match would change the world, and they would lay it all on the line, all before Angle whacks a 2x4 over the injured ribs, seemingly giving the champion the upper hand, going into the biggest show of both of their lives. Now, seeing as this was SmackDown's best match of the night, I'm going to do exactly what I did for Raw's best earlier. I'm going to give this the full beans. Play-by-play analysis is coming for what should be a great match. Both men make their intense entrances as Michael Cole, still hoarse as hell following the McMahon street fight, makes this main event feel massive. Both men tie up with Lesnar's power, proving effective early, but Angle takes Brock to the ground with his skill. But Lesnar breaks with an arm wrench. Angle then trades holds with him. Both of these two former amateur champions are showing their technical prowess early with a great showing of skill that the fans appreciate. More freestyle holds are applied, with these two now showing a masterclass of hold and counter hold, trading everything. It's brilliant, showing their agility and awareness while in the process. Now Angle is whipped into the shoulder block. Lesnar then holds his bandaged lower back, wincing in pain as Angle rebounds with a leg trip, but Lesnar then counters back just as quickly with a takedown and an arm drag, but Angle pushes him into the corner, hits a stiff knee into the injured ribs, but Lesnar comes back with an electric power slam for the first cover of the match. Angle kicks out, Lesnar then misses with a clothesline, and Angle hits a superb German suplex, but the next big thing is straight back up, and he decks him with a clothesline of his own. Angle rolls to the outside, getting Lesnar back in and targeting the ribs and head, already hit for a loop following the elbow earlier, but Lesnar is having none of it as he hits a press slam. Lesnar whips Angle into the corner, but gets kicked in the injured ribs, and then he German suplexes Lesnar to the top turnbuckle, sending his opponent ribs first into it. It's a brilliant spot, and it shocks the crowd into silence and just awe from it all. He sends him to the outside with the barricade, targeting the neck with elbows and finishing with a back suplex onto the ribs for 2 before going into kicks and a float over suplex for another near fall. Lesnar is being worn down as Angle locks in a modified bow and arrow hold, wrenching the ribs and the neck, trying to choke the monster out, but Lesnar is keeping the hand over the arm to prevent the choke. As he grasps for air, he is fading, trying to elbow his way out, but the look on his face implies he is done. But Angle, knowing that he may not be because he's an absolute freak of nature, then reapplies the pressure with a straight up choke with the knee into the injured ribs. Love it. Lesnar winces in excruciating pain and rolls through, but Angle keeps the hold in. Lesnar then climbs up and rams him into the turnbuckles to try and get the WWE champion off of him, which finally breaks it. Brock then goes for kicks as he tries to build momentum. He's then whipped into the turnbuckle, crying out following the ribs going in, followed by a lovely overhead belly-to-belly suplex and a knee to the ribs, sending Lesnar back to the outside. Angle then throws Lesnar back in, lines up for a maneuver, but is hit by a massive spinebuster, with Angle's neck whiplashing off the mat, and he's been knocked loopy as just as the challenger gets to his feet, but it's Angle who gets the first shot, but Lesnar then fights back with a rake to the eyes stopping it as Lesnar uses his strength and speed to take control again. He levels with a couple of beautiful overhead belly-to-belly suplexes, covers, but Angle kicks out. Lesnar goes for another overhead, but Angle counters with a series of German suplexes, hitting 4 in a row, taking the challenger down as the crowd rally in applause for this intense athletic contest. The champion goes for the Angle slam, which is counted into an F5, which is then counted into an ankle lock. Lesnar is in agony, but too close to the ropes, as the Olympian uses his awareness to pull him back into the middle, turning it into a single half Boston to hurt not just the leg, but also the ribs. Oh my days. Superb stuff as Lesnar does make it to the ropes, with Angle again bringing physicality in with the knee to the ribs, but then gets tossed over to the outside, allowing the next big thing a chance to regain his bearings as Angle rushes back in and eats more shoulders before, oh god, an insane release German suplex. Jesus Christ, it turns Lesnar inside out, making the crowd, for the second time, lose their marbles completely. But somehow, someway, the challenger kicks out, only to eat an Angle slam, but Lesnar kicks out again. Angle calls for Lesnar to get up, goes for the Angle slam again to be rolled up for a 2 count, and the F5 is put into position. It connects. Lesnar covers, and Angle kicks out of the F5. Dear God, Lesnar goes to get Angle up again, and the champion locks in the ankle lock with the grapevine now in tow. All hope seems lost for the challenger, but he's dragging the champion and makes it to the ropes against all odds. Holy crap. Angle goes for it again, but he's pushed away. Lesnar goes for the F5, and Angle rolls him up for 2. Oh my God. An Angle slam is then countered. And F5 is ready to strike again. This time, it connects. Lesnar has this match won. But even with victory in sight, he believes he can go one better. He goes to the top rope, he stands gingerly, and you know exactly what is happening. He flips, shooting star press. But Angle is too far away. And, oh god, it's sickening. Even with Taz's scream as well, just making it even more amazing as Lesnar lands square on the top of his head. Holy crap, it's the most famous botch probably in all of wrestling. And my god, it's insane. Angle covers in this improvised finish, but Lesnar kicks out despite the fact he has no idea where he is. He then gets up and hits a third F5. How? How he does this, I've got no clue. God damn it. Oh god. He then crawls over Angle's body and gets the 3. Lesnar is a 2-time WWE champion, but like I've just said, he has no idea where he is. But damn it, he is the winner after 21 minutes and 4 seconds of, as you could tell, crazy wrestling. Both men struggle to get to their feet after an exhausting contest, and Angle is wincing in agony. Lesnar's got a glazed look over his eyes, but both men, after putting each other through a war, shake hands and embrace as the show ends in fireworks and a massive video package to bring this event to a close. And there we are. And if you didn't enjoy that, I don't think the core athletic principles of wrestling are indeed for you. That was a legitimate endurance test for 2 fine athletes, putting it all on the line through real injuries and kayfabe ones. It was a back and forth test of skill, and it was exhilarating, even though at times the momentum shifting, pace and intensity of it felt quite overbearing and unrelenting, not really allowing this match time to breathe. It could have gone a little longer if it slowed down a bit, just to tie up the loose ends, but no, we didn't get that. Not just that, the botch by Lesnar ruined the end, and his lack of selling the ribs neutered the story it told. The crowd were a little too quiet and respectful at times, making the contest feel flat on occasions, but they didn't slow down for the athleticism on show though. All in all, this is a match that is sublime to watch, but is hit by issues that stops it from reaching too high. If the shooting star pressed didn't botch, if Lesnar sold the ribs more, and if the match slowed down a tad and the crowd weren't exhausted, we'd be looking at a match to equal or better Michaels Jericho. However, I have to settle with a 4-star performance from 2 legit athletic badasses in Angle and Lesnar. I still love this match despite its faults, and if you haven't seen it, like many of the big matches on this card, it is worth your time. And now, after a very long time, it's time for me to nail down my final thoughts on this monster of a pay-per-view. This event is one that I remember nostalgically for all the right reasons, but critically it stands up for the same as well. The big 5 matches all delivered above 2.5 stars, with 2 of them going into 4-star territory, 2 being equally footed on 3.5, and 1 being limited to an average 2.5, but did its best to keep up. Those 5 matches on their own are sublime showcases of the variety of WWE's wrestling product, not just at the time, but in general. And they were a great advert for the company, because if you wanted something in your wrestling, whether it be violence, technical brilliance, great amazing back and forth wrestling, and a brilliant match between 2 of the world's best overall in terms of drawing power that you remember, it had it all. It was crazy. As a collection, those 5 matches mean that this event will score highly. And if it was just those 5 matches, you'd be looking at one of the best pay-per-views ever without a shadow of a doubt. However, no matter how amazing and joyous they are, the laboured and underwhelming undercard means this event doesn't hold muster to some others in the WrestleMania chronology. Most of the matches in that realm were solid but unspectacular, as timing constraints, sloppiness and unlikely winners meant that they felt flatter than expected, but still hold high above the undercards of some Mania events dating back many decades. This event was the barnstormer that I thought it would be, a standard bearer for what modern WrestleManias should attest to, full of dream matches, matches, big moments, and a lot of great wrestling. However, it's not quite as unanimously positive as I expected it to be and remembered it being. When comparing it to WrestleMania X7, that show did have 2 zeros, but most of the rest of the card was ridiculously decent and very good, with 2 5-star matches helping it surpass this. Mania X7, upon rewatching and reanalyzing from my old flashback review I did a few years back, got a 9 out of 10 for how well-rounded its variety-laden card was despite the odd dud. And while this card could say it would reach the same heights, it's more measured, but sadly doesn't have the consistency to reach that level. All in all, I have to concede that Mania X7 is the better show, but the rating that I'm giving Mania 19 notes that it isn't a slouch. It's a damn fine show, one that should be seen by all, and as I've stated, is the Mania card whose quality reinforces the perceptions that WrestleMania X7 shattered and rebuilt 2 years prior. The Astrodome show defined what a WrestleMania should be. This one reaffirmed that, and it made its statement clear. For many people, a WrestleMania is held up to the standard of these 2 pay-per-views, and I can fully see why in retrospect. Ladies and gentlemen, WWE WrestleMania 19 gets a fantastic and well-deserved rating of 8.5 out of 10. Some of you may have noted that Mania 31 got 0.5 more, and that is a given, as pretty much all the matches on that pay-per-view got around 3 stars, and that's consistency if I've never seen it. This one, held some 12 years earlier, did a sublime job and rests amongst my favourite Mania pay-per-views. Then again, they say you never forget your first, and even though that initial watching experience during the replay on Sky Sports 4 on April the 4th, 2003 was cut short by school and the assistance of my dad that I miss it and go to sleep before we had Sky Plus installed, it was very annoying that I missed 2/3 of this show. But I will never forget that this was the first on the start of a journey that led me to becoming the fan and reviewer of WWE wrestling that I am today. And for that, WrestleMania 19, it's been an honor to see you again and give you the credit you deserve. And I will keep coming back time and time again until the day I die to see this show and just bask in its quality. It may not have been perfect, but what a show this is. Well, there you have it, ladies and gentlemen. The WrestleMania 19 Friday Flashback review for May 2017 is done. And I just want to thank you all for getting to the end of this. Because if you're still here, over an hour later, I have to tip my invisible hat to you. Because not only has this video gone over an hour long and is an absolute monster of a pay-per-view flashback, it's also been very energy-sapping for me. If you hadn't looked on Twitter prior to this review going up, you'll have noticed, well, you might have noticed, I'm using a different microphone. I had to order in a brand new microphone at the last minute following some problems with my old one. And because of other video projects, I hadn't recorded this until the day prior to this video going up. This video had been booked and planned ahead of time, yet I still hadn't recorded it until my microphone busted. I had to get this brand new, amazing microphone in at great expense to ensure that this video went up on time. And the fact that it is nothing short of a miracle. I have been in this recording booth, studio that I have here, for nearly 4 hours into the early hours of the morning on this Friday that this gets uploaded on, ensuring that it is done. And if it is up on the day and you're listening to this right now, then this amazing, energy-sapping effort that I've put through to ensure this gets up on time to continue a near-flawless record of uploads for this channel has been kept. And I am so happy if that is indeed the case. But yeah, I am exhausted, and yeah, I don't need to say much more. It's WrestleMania 19. The event left me exhausted, and I'm being left exhausted by the recording of the review of it, of course. Anyway, ladies and gentlemen, what did you think of this review? Am I right to rate it below X7? Should I have rated it higher? Should I have rated it lower? Give your opinions in the comment section, and if you want to not miss out on any wrestling reviews in the future or any other videos that this channel does from video game playthroughs and MLP reviews, all you have to do is click that subscribe button, and I would appreciate it immensely. Now, the next Friday Flashback is another request, and it's one I'm looking forward to doing. It is One Night Only 1997, the best British pay-per-view outside of SummerSlam 92. That is going to be an interesting one because I haven't seen it before. So that, my opinion of it, will not be clouded by nostalgia or other problems. That is going to be a legitimate first-time watch and check. It's going to be interesting, and I look forward to seeing it all go down. And if you do not want to miss that, click the subscribe button. It'll be up in late June. All will be good. I have been Freddie Thomas, you've been people listening, this has been another Friday Flashback review for the CC Network, and I have got to go lie down. I will see you all next time.